over to Japan and come back to me, I immediately have to put a notice out, because somebody can put a line on it. And that's what they do on TikTok. Whatever they write shapes your mind. The video might not support what they've written on top, but you are the communications people. You know how it is done. It is the headline that deflects from the true story. Anybody could have put there, Sankuma is so broke, he's playing music for food in London. It could be worse. He has escaped with somebody's wife. And you will believe it. And if everybody tells you that, no, that is not what the video is saying, you say no, but that is what they've written on top of it. So unimaginable boundaries. When it got to the Supreme Court, Mensa Bonsu JSC, so that was Akayensu the J as she was in the High Court. When it got to the Supreme Court, Mensa Bonsu JSC said that if long before the advent of such technologies, damage from libel was presumed because of the longevity and reach of the written word, then it is even more justifiable in the era of electronic mass media technologies that can propagate any publication beyond boundaries that anyone can tell. And so now the damages for libel are becoming heavier and heavier, because at first it was just a few people who will read it. Now millions of people will read it. And so the courts are beginning to award more and more damages because of the simple reach of social media. And there's this case, Ankuma and Taylor. I don't know that Ankuma. I have not met him before. I'm not related to him. The High Court said, for those who wish to engage in cyber libel and or defame others, the internet medium provides an easy caveat, that's me, and it provides an easily accessible platform to do so. So prevalent has this become that some scholars define contemporary times as being the post-truth or post-fact, with the term fake news becoming a buzzword, one in which truth is not verifiable fact, but rather the repetition of narrative that appeals to the emotion instead of reasoning, often facilitated by a media ecosystem dominated by the internet and social media. This unfortunate aspect of the use of the internet is what led to this lawsuit. In terms of the defendant's activities on Facebook, not plaintiff, defendant's activities on Facebook, evidence was submitted to the court. On Twitter, on YouTube, the extent of his following, evidence of watch parties he holds on social media, and comments passed by others on the post, and held, quote, it is clear that the defendant's video was widely circulated, and therefore the court ought to take that into consideration in awarding damages. The court must take into account the harm caused to the plaintiff's feelings by defendant's outrageous and malicious conduct, and award both exemplary and aggravated damages. Because to my mind, that's what the judge is speaking, the purpose of exemplary damages is to punish and deter. Right? At the time this judgment was given, the amount awarded was $500,000. But with the way the economy has become, I no longer know what the dollar equivalent is. And so look, it is the extent of the reach can easily damage people by a simple post. And because of this, the courts are very mindful of this, and it's beginning to affect the amount of damages awarded. And so when the stories come, I make a point to Ghanaians, can you wait 24 hours? This is my tip to you. If it is too good to be true on the internet, if it is too good to be true, it is too good to be true. And so when you read, the police have stormed, ask yourself, wait, they are not idiots though in the police. Why would they do this? Pause a bit, think a bit, wait for more information. But if you rush to put it out there because you are traditional media and you are competing with social media and you can't catch up, so the minute you see it on social media, you put it on your traditional media, you could get into a lot of trouble. Let's move quickly along. Privacy. The Constitution protects the privacy of homes, properties, and correspondence and communication, except in accordance with the law. Our courts, the Ghanaian courts, have set what we call the permissible limitation test. 1, is it legal? 2, is it legitimate? 3, is it proportional? Those are the exceptions that the law is allowed to make to the freedom of communication, or the right and privacy of communication. So I will go into cyber offenses, but I want to detour a bit. I have 3 minutes. You are lying. I want to go into the. You don't want your people to hear the information. JB Power. Child protections online. In the election cycle doesn't allow you to put out anything. If I come to you that this politician has
ethics is the quest for a life worth living, putting every activity and goal in its place, knowing what is worth doing and what is not worth doing. It is also within businesses, keeping in mind what is ultimately important and essential, and what is part of business, what is forbidden to business, even when increased profit is at stake. Okay, so today I'm supposed to speak about social media ethics and the challenges you face as the election comes along. I saw a video yesterday where Donald Trump was promising Mahama victory. And he was saying that, look, the way I use Kamala to wipe the ground, you use Baumia to wipe the ground. I didn't have to guess it was a fake video. But I'm wondering about what Ben Avle said, that just in case I was a little illiterate, is it possible the man was issuing these instructions from America and prophesying into Ghana? I was like, wow. I've seen several news stories where NDC is accusing MPP and vice versa. So here's what it is. I'm going to share with you some traps as social media becomes very prolific, and there are some chapters in my new book on social media marketing management as well. If you are predisposed, you can buy it, but if you don't buy it, the world will still go on. Okay, so sometimes here's what it is. First thing, misinformation and disinformation. There's a difference between these two things. Now, when you are doing misinformation, you are unintentionally spreading false content. But when you are engaged in disinformation, you are spreading deliberately false content. They are two different things. So an MP comes to you and says, this is neck to neck. I've watched Ben Avle. I've looked at your predictions. This guy I'm contesting with has a side chick. The lady has decided that she will come open. I'll give you 2 million Ghana cedis. If you can organize for her to do the video, it will trend, and then I'll win the election for 100,000 US. Given the targets at Citi, you can be tempted, Vivian Kailoko, to acquiesce to this ridiculous request. There's no time in 9 days to check the lady's story, check the veracity of the video, but you can go with it, and the contestant might win, but you destroyed the race because you were not savvy and didn't have a certain ethical posture. So please, here are the risks if you go and do misinformation and disinformation. You spread false information, you promote political propaganda, and eventually when you are found out, you create a loss of trust in media institutions. That cannot be your portion. What do? Citi showed me at the back, they had 1.7 million Twitter followers. Samens, even with my 30,000 Facebook followers, it's impossible to go anywhere in Ghana without somebody can, hey, you are prof. I said, yeah, I am. Hey, you have changed my life as I've changed your life. One guy said, I use your videos to train the people in my organization. He said, I've opened 6 branches because I just listened to you. I was shocked. This was in Tema a month ago. He didn't pay any tithe. He was just speaking happily, and he said, I even brought my boss. Come and take a photo with him. I went to take a photo with the boss. I was looking at this guy wondering. He was called Daniel. I said, Daniel, you must repent. So Ben, I'll go and look for this guy a little later. So even me with 30, can you imagine Citi with 1.7 million is misinforming people? They can take us all into the sea. Number 2, content moderation and censorship. So Ben talked about free expression. We need to balance free expression with creating harmful or illegal content. So that's something you must take cognizance of. Issues around algorithm bias. You are the expert in these things. So when I finish, you can come back and come and explain to them. Algorithm bias. It's very important to balance that as well, so that we don't create echo chambers. You understand that one too? So after you come and explain it to them, echo chambers, and then you reinforce users' existing beliefs and deepening societal divides. That shouldn't happen. Issues around privacy and data settings. Those are things you must also take cognizance of, because nowadays, because data is very profuse, if you are not careful, you can use it in illegitimate ways. That's not what you should do as a journalistic fraternity. Then there's also the issue of potential misuse or breaches of sensitive user data. It's very important you manage that carefully so you don't run into ditches. Then there are issues around manipulation and exploitation. Sometimes we can design content that goes to exploit users' psychological vulnerabilities, like for instance those who have certain tribal bigotries embedded in their system. If you're not careful about your programming, you go and exacerbate such situations. That shouldn't happen from your side. Then impact on democratic processes. So you can actually influence an election positively or negatively if your ethical radar is not tuned aright, because you can put out fake news inadvertently. Otherwise, you can also promote what we call coordinated inauthentic behavior, where people are constantly misrepresented because you provide the platforms for those things to happen to them. That shouldn't happen as well.
That was Professor Bob Hinson. Of Pro VC of the Ghana Technological University. Earlier you heard is Anan Nkuma. They were both speakers at the African Media Bureau event held earlier today. This is how we conclude today's edition of the program. Show produced by Nana Kwabna Wilson, Beverly London, Sami Wiafe, and Manuel Ayama. Technical assistance provided by Thomas Obindako. Earlier you heard Akosi Ochre. My name is Selom Adonu. Have a good evening.
Citi 97.3 Accra.